My name is Kelly Sharp. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions. I'm going to be managing the chat while Bridget presents. So you're welcome to put some questions in the chat bar while we present. But again, please stay muted throughout the presentation. We will open it up for questions at the end, but we want to make sure all audience members are able to hear clearly. But I'm going to pass it over to Bridget Betts, who is our Senior Director of Student Financial Services.
Thank you, Kelly. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. As Kelly mentioned, my name is Bridget Betts, Senior Director of Student Financial Services Office here at Missouri S&T. For those that don't know, our office consists of financial aid, billing, and payments. So basically, all of the money, issues, concerns, good stuff, all comes through our office. So I do know affordability is an important piece of your college decision. So our focus tonight is to walk through your financial aid offer letter and explain what it means. So hopefully you've received that at this point. If there is time at the end, I'm happy to answer any questions that we might have, but as Kelly mentioned, she's going to be monitoring the chat, so you can enter in those questions and she can either help you during the presentation or we will have some time at the end. I'm hoping that the questions that you might have are going to be related to your financial aid offer letter, and hopefully the things that I go through tonight will answer those questions for you. If we do have time at the end, we could also talk about other things that aren't necessarily related to your financial aid offer letter, as I do know that there's probably some questions about financial aid in general, but I do want to focus tonight on that financial aid offer letter. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about things that you should have received in the financial aid offer letter that we would have sent at the end of February. But we're also going to explain the cost of attendance that you see in that letter, as well as information about grants, scholarships, loans, work study that may also be on that letter. I will then also give you some more information about how you can cover the difference, if there is one, and your next steps. So before we get going, I wanted to mention that if you have already completed your FAFSA, you each should have received a paper letter in the mail starting around the last week of February. We do also process these on a weekly basis, and so if you filed your FAFSA after that, you can expect it within a week after we have received your FAFSA. If you have not yet completed a FAFSA, we can still send you a financial aid offer letter, and you would just need to reach out to our office and we can get one sent to you. I'll have some contact information at the end of our presentation, so you'll know how to reach us. If you did file the FAFSA and you did not receive the financial aid offer letter yet, and you may not receive it if you have not received it by early next week, please let my office know and we'll make sure that one gets in the mail to you. But you do have access to a PDF copy of this letter in Joe's in your message center. So you'll see when you log into Joe's with your username and password that you set up, you will have a notifications tile, which will have a lot of good information related to your to-do list, but it also have a message center, which basically holds all of the messages our office sends to you throughout your time here at Missouri S&T. All right, let's get started. So any financial aid offer letter should answer the question, what is the cost to me? What does it cost to go to this institution? What's the bottom line? So to determine this answer using the financial aid offer letter, we will use the formula, the cost of attendance minus grants and scholarships minus loan options if you choose to borrow. This is going to give you your estimated out-of-pocket expense for your first academic year at Missouri S&T. You'll see how this works as we go. This is a copy. This is an example letter for Joe Miner. Joe Miner is Missouri S&T's mascot, so he has gotten a financial aid offer letter from us. Yours should look similar to this. On the front of this letter, you will see the good stuff, which includes the estimated cost and the aid that we're offering to help cover that cost of attendance. This includes grants and scholarships that you've been offered, which is free money, student loan options, which is money you must pay back, and any additional options you might have to cover the cost and what your estimated out-of-pocket expenses are for one academic year. You can see those two out-of-pocket expenses circled here in red. We're going to go over this in more detail in just a few moments, but you'll see that we're doing the math for you throughout this letter. Also, if you have a lot of scholarships, you may notice that some of your information goes on to the back, but you may see that all of this is on the first page of your letter. So if you flip your financial aid offer letter, if you flip your offer letter over, you'll have a lot of information that we are required to share with you, and we hope that you read. This text also includes additional resources available to you and the next steps to finalize your financial aid offers. Besides the required disclaimers, it also gives you information about how long it should take to graduate in the major you are currently interested in. So you can see at the top there, for instance, that Joe Miner is interested in electrical engineering, which will require Joe to take 16 hours per semester in order to graduate in 4 years. Now, some students will take more in a fall or spring semester, depending on where they are in their progression. But you could also consider summer classes to kind of make that up in order to get to your 4 years. But we do want to make sure that you're aware of that going in. And so it is included on your financial aid offer letter. On future letters that you receive from us, which will be in the form of an email in the future, it will also show a running total of federal loans borrowed to date. At this point, you're new students and you probably have not borrowed any federal student loans unless you're transferring to us. And so you won't see that on your first letter from us, but in future letters or future emails, you will. Moving on, let's break down the financial aid offer in a little more detail. So on the front of the letter, the estimated cost of attendance you see on this letter is the estimated average cost for a student for one academic year based on your current declared major. Students can receive financial aid up to the total cost of attendance, so this is an important starting point. You will also see throughout the letter that we break your costs and aid down by term. The first column is for fall, the second column is for spring, and if you were to enroll for summer, we would eventually show you a third column there. But here you will see the last column is the total of the two. Fall plus spring equals the total academic year. So if you wanted to just look at what fall might cost you, you can do that. It would just be look at the first column all the way down the letter. We are governed by the University of Missouri Board of Curators, and they do not typically approve tuition and fees for the upcoming year until end of May, beginning of June. What you see here is our current best estimate of our cost for the upcoming year. We are comfortable sharing this with you now as we don't think it will change too much when the Board of Curators reviews it. But if it does change, you'll receive an updated email with the cost information for your major. Please note, though, the cost you see here is not going to be published on our website until the tuition and fees are actually approved later this summer. So you will see that this is a little bit different than what is published on the website because we are anticipating a slight increase when the Board of Curators approves tuition and fees. I also need to mention that your cost of attendance will vary based on residency. In this example, Joe Miner is considered a Missouri resident. But if you are from outside the state of Missouri, for example, your costs may be higher. Please note that this is not your bill. This is an estimated cost that helps you start to make plans on how to help cover that cost. The actual bill comes out around July 15th, and that will be based on the classes you're actually registered for at that time and based on the housing and food choices you make between now and then. The information on here is an average and will not change. It is just to be used for planning purposes. The cost of attendance is broken down into direct cost and indirect cost. Direct costs are costs that could be billed to you. Remember, this is not the bill itself, it's just giving you an estimate of what you might be able to see on your bill. These direct costs include tuition and fees and housing and food. Our tuition is a flat rate tuition, which means that you can take between 12 to 18 credit hours for the same cost. As I mentioned, your tuition is going to be based on your major. We currently have 3 tiers of tuition: humanities and social sciences like history or psychology, laboratory sciences and math like biology, math, or physics, and engineering and computing, which includes all engineering, computer science, and undeclared students. In this example, Joe Minor is planning on majoring in engineering, and so his tuition is based on that tier tuition for engineering and computing. The student activity and health fees you see here are required for all students. But these fees allow access to the recreation and fitness centers and admission to home athletic games or access to services offered by the Student Health Center or the Counseling Center. In terms of housing, we do have a 2-year residency rule, so most of you will be living on campus or campus-approved housing your first 2 years. This housing and food cost that you see here is a weighted average of all the on-campus residential halls we have available to incoming students, and it includes a meal plan. You will notice that this is the same cost for an in-state and out-of-state student. It does not vary by residency. Some institutions might have a different cost if you are an in-state or out-of-state student for housing and food, and ours is the same regardless. If you are living on campus, your housing will show in direct costs because we bill for the residence halls that will be included on that first bill. If you think you will be living in a fraternity or sorority or off campus, maybe you live close to campus and you have a waiver to live off campus, your cost will vary depending on which Greek house or Rolla housing you are living in. The Greek houses do not bill through the university. They will bill the student directly. Any off-campus or Greek life housing will show up as an indirect cost once we know that you are not living in the residence halls. So again, remember, this is an estimate, and just because it shows housing and food here does not mean that we are assuming where you're going to live or what housing choice you have chosen. Generally, unless you have housing-specific scholarships, you can use the same financial aid to cover any housing. Your aid will just pay towards anything on the bill first, so any direct cost first. And then if there is anything remaining, the student will receive a refund to help pay for their Greek or off-campus housing. If at some point you decide, as I mentioned, that you are not going to live in a residence hall, you have the ability to update this information in Joe's in your to-do list. In that same area where we saw the notifications, you can tell us where you are planning to reside. Generally, living in Greek life or off campus is relatively cheaper than living in the residence hall. And so if you do report to us that you're going to be living off campus, please note that your cost of attendance will most likely decrease, and it could affect what aid you might be eligible for because you can only receive aid up to that total cost of attendance. So indirect costs are costs that are not billed to you, but could still be applied, but aid, you can still use aid for those costs if needed. The average indirect costs are calculated from a student survey conducted every 3rd year and adjusted for inflation in the off years. These costs include transportation, personal expenses, and books and supplies. Books and supplies are not currently based on a survey. I will talk more about that in a minute. But the transportation and personal expenses are based on that survey. So transportation includes the average cost for our students to visit home twice a semester and travel around campus if they bring a car. Some students may go home more often than others, or they may have to fly rather than drive. Each student is going to be a little bit different depending on where they call home. Personal expenses include things like entertainment, toiletries and deodorant, which we hope everybody will purchase, laundry, and other things like that. To minimize these expenses, we typically tell students to live like a college student now because they don't yet make the money their parents do, so they need to budget wisely. In regard to the books and supplies, S&T has recently partnered with Barnes & Noble to create the Minor Book Bundle, which is the cost you see here under Books and Supplies. With this product, you'll receive all your course materials before the first day of class, personalized to your class schedule, and for one price. This cost will show on your bill each semester. And so when you see future aid offer letters, we will be moving the books and supplies from indirect costs to direct costs since they now show up on the bill. If you decide that you have a lighter load in any semester and that it would not make sense to have the minor book bundle, maybe you only need one book for that semester or maybe one or two, and it doesn't quite equal the amount that we are charging for the book bundle, you have the opportunity to opt out of that process, and you can do so approximately 1 month before the start of each semester, and it runs into 2 weeks into the semester. And you'll get plenty of emails letting you know the dates and deadlines here. But if you opt out of the book bundle, you can then purchase the books and supplies that you need either from our bookstore or from elsewhere. We would encourage you, though, to review the minor book bundle each semester as your schedule and book needs will be different for each semester. You could choose to just look at the direct cost in the bottom line calculation if you have other means to cover the indirect cost. However, the total cost of attendance is what the letter uses as you move forward in the cost calculations. So now we're going to look at the aid listed on the front side of your letter. The first section we are going to look at includes grants and scholarships. These are free money that do not need to be repaid. Scholarships are typically based on your academics or your merits, and these can either be renewable or one-time awards. You should have received information about the renewability of each award when you received that particular scholarship, but you will see we included an asterisk next to the ones we know that are renewable. Now, that doesn't mean that the ones that don't have an asterisk are not renewable necessarily. They're just not automatically renewable. It will depend on funds available and other criteria in future years. I will mention, because it shows in Joe Miner's scholarships and grants right now, that he does have three scholarships that are renewable. You can see that by the asterisk, and 2 that are not listed as renewable. Now, the academic departmental scholarship will be replaced by other named funds from the academic department you are majoring in. And so those funds may become renewable if funding is available in future years. The Missouri Scholar One-Year Award is just for the 26-27 age year and will not be renewable in future years. If you are a new freshman and received the Groundbreaker Scholarship Package like Joe Miner did here, this is the automatic merit scholarship that was awarded from S&T at the time of admission and is renewable for 4 years with a 3.0 cumulative GPA. We look at that at the end of each academic year. This scholarship is what we consider a package. That means that other named scholarships may make up that package in the future, but the total amount of that package will stay the same. So over the summer, you're going to see that this is going to change from Groundbreaker package to Missouri S&T scholarship and maybe some other named scholarship. But in this case, Joe Miner received $10,000 in a Groundbreaker scholarship, so whatever we replace it with will total $10,000 every year that is renewed. You will also see grant funding in this section. Grants are typically based on your family's income or your need. Eligibility for need-based aid is determined by the free application for federal student aid or the FAFSA each year. The FAFSA is not required, but we do highly encourage it. There are some scholarships that require that the FAFSA be filed and that you have exhausted all of your options before you're considered. But in general, it is not required for most scholarships that you would receive, but it is required if you are going to be eligible for any need-based aid or grants. To receive these grant funds in the future, you would need to complete that FAFSA by our priority deadline each year and have roughly the same family income each year you complete the FAFSA in order to have a similar award amount. Missouri S&T's FAFSA priority deadline is February 1, so something to mark on your calendars each year. The grant you see in Joe's example here is the Access Missouri grant, but you might also see a federal Pell Grant or the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, or SEOG for short. These are offered to families with the highest financial need. Access Missouri Grant is another fund from the state of Missouri that is available to a wider range of students and might be eligible for low to middle income families, whereas the federal Pell Grant and the SEOG grant are usually to the lowest family income. The state of Missouri's FAFSA priority deadline is also February 1, so in order to renew Access Missouri in future years, you would need to meet the state of Missouri's FAFSA priority deadline each year and maintain a 2.5 cumulative GPA at the end of each semester. Scholarship and grant aid is totaled at the bottom of the section in the gray bar that you see here. We anticipate that you accept free money, so these are already accepted for you and Joe's. You don't need to accept these. The first section in green, right under the scholarships and grants, is the first piece of math. It is taking the total cost of attendance we saw earlier and subtracting the grants and scholarships. This amount represents the net cost of attendance you would need to plan to cover for an academic year before considering loans or payment plans. If you have other means to cover your indirect costs, like transportation or personal needs, maybe you have a rich grandma or uncle or somebody like that who wants to help you with your cost, you can then just use the direct cost instead of both the direct and indirect cost together, and then subtract out the grants and scholarships. So then you can see the cost of attendance, the direct cost minus scholarships and grant aid. This would be what could be billed to you after your scholarships and grants have been applied to your bill. The next section shows student loans that have been offered to the student if you had filed a FAFSA. The FAFSA is required for federal student loans. So if you are needing to borrow federal student loans, you would need to make sure the FAFSA is completed each year. Loans are aid that must be repaid, often with interest, so you would be required to accept all or a portion of these loans in Joe's if you intend to borrow them. For federal student loans, the federal maximum that can be borrowed by a dependent freshman is $5,500 per year. This amount is not determined by S&T, it is determined by the federal government and will be the same at any institution that you might be considering. You will most likely see that your federal loans, which are the direct student loans on your letter, add up to that federal maximum. As you move up in your academic levels, like sophomore, junior, senior, the federal maximum you can borrow will increase. As you can see here, Joe Minor has been offered both a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan in this example. It is possible that you will only have one of these, or the amounts will be a little bit different based on your FAFSA information and the other financial aid that you have available. A subsidized loan is a need-based loan, which is offered to students who have need based based on their FAFSA information. Subsidized means that the government is subsidizing the interest while you're in school, so there is no interest while the student is in school. It's the better loan of the two. The maximum amount for this type of loan for a dependent freshman is $3,500. So even though I said the total between the two is $5,500, no more than $3,500 can be a subsidized loan. If you do not want to borrow the full amount of student loans but need to borrow some, you would choose this loan first because, again, it has no interest while you're in school. An unsubsidized loan starts accruing interest as soon as it is dispersed. So, Joe Minor in this example was to accept his unsubsidized loan as it is right now. The fall portion of the $1,000 would disperse in August and start accruing on that $1,000 in August. The second disbursement would not start accruing interest until it actually occurs in January of the following January. You are not required to start paying interest on either of these loans or on the unsubsidized loan, but it does start accumulating. Currently, the interest rate for federal student loans is 6.39%, and interest rates are decided usually in May based on the Treasury bill prior to the start of the new age year. For both subsidized and unsubsidized loans, students do not need to start repaying these loans until 6 months after the student has graduated or dropped below half-time, whichever comes first. The second green line you see on your letter directly under your loan offers is the total cost of attendance from the first page minus the total grants and scholarships and minus the student loan offers for the year. This is the bottom line estimated cost for one academic year if you utilize all financial aid offered, including those student loans. Excuse me. This amount represents the net cost of attendance you would need to plan to still cover for an academic year if you borrowed the loan options offered to you. Again, if you do not wish to use the financial aid for those indirect costs like transportation or personal needs, you could, it did not change here, but you will see that the cost of attendance here in the box at the bottom right, the cost of attendance now listed is the direct cost for a student. And so if you just looked at the direct cost and you didn't include the indirect cost and subtracted that out, you could see what the cost would be billed to you after all scholarships, grants, and loans. If you wanted to reduce the amount of loans you wish to borrow, you would also subtract that from this amount if you did not want to borrow those loans, or if you wanted to accept a reduced amount. So some students may have been offered student work study, and that would be listed on the back of the letter as well. Work study is a program where the financial aid office helps you find a job, typically on campus, although we do have some off-campus jobs. Really like seeing the students play with the animals at the animal shelter. But you earn a biweekly paycheck up to the amount that was offered. So this year we have offered $4,500 for the year if you have room in your cost of attendance. And jobs typically start at $15 an hour, and students usually work 10 to 20 hours a week until you have earned the amount we have offered in this financial aid offer letter. So some students may work a whole lot of hours in the fall and earn that $4,500 all in the fall semester, or they might spread it out across fall and spring. Your paycheck that you earn is yours to use. You can use it to pay towards your bill, or you can use it to cover some of those indirect costs we talked about earlier. This amount will not be applied to your bill, so you will not see it as anticipated aid, and it will not reduce the amount that you owe. It is an amount that you earn and you receive a paycheck for. Work study is a need-based program and is based on your FAFSA information. You want to complete the FAFSA every year by February 1 to continue to be eligible for this program. We typically only have enough funding for about 100 work study jobs. So if you are not offered work study, you can email our office and ask to be put on a wait list. If funding becomes available, we will place you in a job. However, most students will work on campus without work study funding. So if you did not get offered, no worries there. Just know that everything is the same between a work study and a non-work study job. The only difference is that the Student Financial Services Office would help you find a work study job. So if you do not have federal work study, you would have to find that job on your own. But many departments like the library, our IT, even our admissions office, hire student workers on campus, and there are actually more non-work study jobs than there are federal work study jobs. So never fear that. Never fear about that. If you have been offered work study and you would like to utilize it, you will need to accept it in JOES. We will then contact you over the summer, closer to July and August, to start the process of finding you a position. You have a variety of options to help you cover that remaining cost, that bottom line cost that we talked about in either of those green options or green lines on your financial aid offer letter, wherever you chose to stop, either after scholarships and grants or after loans. We do offer a payment plan. The first bill comes out July 15th, and it will show all the charges for the fall semester if you have registered for classes by that point, and it will subtract out all the fall financial aid that has been accepted by that time. The remaining is the total due for the fall semester. Our payment plan typically offers 4 payments in the fall, 4 in the spring, and 2 in the summer. You may choose not to have a payment plan, and you might just pay that whole amount for the fall semester in one payment. You can certainly do that. If you do that, that first payment is due August 10th and is due in full. If you're not able to make that payment in full, or you don't have enough financial aid to help cover that, this is when you would consider that payment plan. If you sign up for the payment plan, there will be a $50 setup fee each semester that you sign up for the payment plan. If you set up the payment plan and are not on time with your payments, you will be assessed a 1% late payment fee. Otherwise, if you set it up and you pay on time, no other fees apply. You could also choose to use your savings or use funding from a 529 plan that you have established, or maybe somebody in your family has established on the student's behalf. Typically, for the 529 plan, you will take the first bill and provide it to whomever is servicing your 529 plan. And then they will send the funding you request to our office to pay towards those items on the bill. If you do go with the 529 plan, please make sure you request those funds soon after receiving the bill, as it does take some time for us to get the funds from the group servicing that plan for you, especially if it's coming by check. If you're in Missouri and you have a MOST plan, they have an ability to send it to us via ACH. But if you are outside the state of Missouri or you choose to have it sent by check, it will take some time for it to get to us and get processed. You may also have military benefits that you would like to use for yourself or the student. If that is the case, I would encourage you to reach out to Kevin Walkup, who is in the Military and Veterans Service Center, to get that process started, as he is our VA certifying official. And so everything will start with him in order to get those funds to Missouri S&T. As a parent, you could also choose to borrow a Federal Parent Plus loan. This is a federal loan that a parent can borrow up to $20,000 a year per student, with a total aggregate of $65,000 per student. So you would want to plan wisely in what years you would want to borrow that loan, as you have a total of $65,000 across the student's career. It is solely in the parent's name if you borrow this particular loan, and is based on the parent's credit. The current interest rate is fixed at 8.94%, and the loan is considered unsubsidized, meaning it starts accumulating interest as soon as it disperses. However, it can be deferred, the payment in general can be deferred up to 4 years while the student is at least half-time, if you request that deferment at the time you apply. If you're interested in this loan, the parent would need to complete the application and credit check at studentaid.gov. The application should be available starting the week of April 24th. You might also consider a private student loan. A private student loan is going to be through a private lender of your choosing, and the interest and repayment rates will vary depending on the lender and the student's credit. Typically, students have little to no credit, so they may need a cosigner. But this type of loan can also be borrowed up to the remaining cost of attendance, and repayment does not begin until 6 months after the student has graduated or drops below half-time, whichever comes first. I have included our website here that includes our preferred lenders our students have used over the last few years, but you can choose any lender you're comfortable with, even if they're not on the list. If you will not be borrowing for the entire cost of attendance and maybe only need the direct cost, so what's actually going to be on that bill, I would encourage you not to apply for a private or a Parent Plus loan until you have received your first bill in July so that you only borrow what you need. However, if you know you're going to need the whole cost of attendance covered, you can go ahead and start once the applications are available. Private loans are good now, Parent Plus loans after April 24th. I would also encourage you to borrow for the entire year so that you only have one credit check. You can assume that the cost for the fall semester are going to be similar in the spring, and so you can just double that amount that you request. If for some reason you request an amount that is more than what you need, you can then request at any time throughout the year, you can request us to return that back to the lender so that you do not borrow more than you actually need. So now that we've gone through the financial aid offer letter, I will go over some of your next steps. You should have received an offer letter guide. Let's see if I can show this here. Says 2627 financial aid offer letter. And that will have a financial aid checklist that has more details on the inside of that. We also have a copy of this. If you did not receive this particular document, this handout, we have a copy on our website as well, and we're happy to email it to you if you need that. But for our next steps, here are some few things that you need to be doing once you are ready to do so. So the first thing I want to mention is keep applying for scholarships. We encourage you to apply for scholarships at scholarships.mst.edu. At this point, we have made all of our initial awards out of that system, but I typically tell students to keep applying as funds may become available in the future, especially if you haven't been in the system already. I would encourage you to get in there as soon as possible if you haven't. Once you log into the system, you'll also be asked a series of questions and be prompted to complete a general scholarship application. You can answer as few or as many questions as you'd like, but the more you answer, the more scholarships you may be matched to, especially if you complete that general scholarship application. While I'm also pushing scholarships.mst.edu for our scholarships, I would also push you to consider scholarships in your high school or around your community as well. And so a lot of times in the high schools, the high school counselors will put together packets maybe, or at least some kind of scholarship board that shows all the scholarships that are available to students from that high school and from that community. And so a lot of high school counselors will try to make it easy for students to get it completed. And so it is worth the effort to go through that process and apply for additional scholarships if you haven't already. Your next step is to accept or decline your loans and work study and JOES before that first bill in July, especially if you know you're going to use them. You can choose to reduce the amount of either the loan or the work study if you would like to accept a lower amount, or if you do not need to borrow that full amount of loan that was offered to you. If at any time during the year you need to increase that amount up to the original amount offered, you just contact our office and we will help you get that completed. We just don't want you to borrow more than is necessary. So please make sure you're looking at your actual expenses to see what you might need to consider. Now, for all those outside scholarships that you're going to be getting, we want you to report those to us in JOES. You can report your outside scholarships as you receive them. All outside scholarships need to be sent to the Student Financial Services office, but in the meantime, if you report them on JOES, they will then reduce the amount due when the bill is generated. So a lot of times you're going to find out in April and May if you've received any of those private outside scholarships, but they might not send you or us the check until they know that you've started at Missouri S&T. So sometimes that can go into August or September. So that's why we want you to report them to us as soon as you know about them so that you don't have to pay any bill that would later be covered by a private scholarship. If you do plan to borrow federal subsidized or unsubsidized student loans, you will need to complete a one-time master promissory note and entrance counseling at studentaid.gov. These two items are good for 10 years, so in the future, you'll just complete your FAFSA and accept your loans in Joe's. But these are required for new borrowers, as you need to know what your rights and responsibilities are with borrowing, and you need to know what it will look like once you have borrowed the loans and later graduate and enter your loan repayment. We encourage you to check your to-do list and message center in Joe's. As you saw at the beginning, there's a notifications tab in Joe's that has both of these items. And if we need anything additional from you, we will email you at your Missouri S&T email, but we'll also put it in your to-do list in Joe's. And so some of you may already have some to-do lists for things that we need you to complete. Once you register for fall classes, Student Financial Services will be sending emails exclusively to your S&T email. So it is important that you have that set up and you are checking it. You can also find any communications that we sent from prior to when you enrolled and even after, all in that message center from here forward. We do encourage, if you have decided Missouri S&T is the place for you, and you have figured out what financial aid you can use to cover your cost, your next step then to committing to Missouri S&T would be to register for advising and registration and pay your enrollment fee if you have not done so already. During your advising and registration day, you'll also have an opportunity to meet one-on-one with financial services representative, where we can confirm your financial aid, answer any questions you have, and make sure you're aware of your personal next steps. You're also invited to attend one of the minor welcome bash sessions in June. During that time, you'll have an opportunity to attend some really great information sessions. Say that 10 times fast. That will include a financial aid and billing presentation, where you're going to be able to hear from our office how the billing process works at S&T. And it's another great opportunity for us to answer any questions that you might have as we get closer to that bill being generated in July. With that, here are the contacts I referenced throughout the presentation. Additionally, you can use this QR code here to schedule an appointment with our office, either in person if you want to come to campus or virtually. And we can go over your individual offer letter and any questions that you might have. It'll be similar to what you would experience at advising and registration, although we can spend a little bit more time with you if we have an individual appointment scheduled for you. If you do have any more questions about your financial aid, please reach out to our office, or if you have questions about military or veterans benefits, we encourage you to reach out to Mr. Kevin Walkup, and he'd be happy to help you as well get the process started to receive your VA benefits. All right. That is, I know I talked through a lot of information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that we might have had up to this point, or any questions you might have now that we have finalized our presentation. Kelly, are there any questions that I can start with?
Yeah, so I've been answering them all through the chat.
Sweet.
So hopefully I answered most of the questions, but I can give a couple minutes if anybody wants to put in if they have any other last minute ones. Anyone? Well, we had a lot of questions regarding the FAFSA scholarships, but I think I took care of most of them. So I'll give it just a couple more. Okay, here we go. Okay, is there a process to get credit scholarship for the A+ program in Missouri?
So at Missouri S&T, we do not have an equivalent scholarship for A+ eligible students. We do If you are interested, we do have a Campus Connections program that where we have an agreement with East Central, where you might be able to use your A+ there and then transfer to us if that's what you would like to do. Otherwise, we encourage any other scholarships that you might have to be sent to S&T, but currently we do not have an A+ eligible or equivalent scholarship.
Is there a recording of this webinar that you can go back and rewatch? Yes, we have it recorded. We'll edit it, so it may be about 24 to 48 hours. Well, tomorrow's Friday, so it may be next week before we'll have it edited and ready to go. We do have a Discover Day tomorrow, so I think it's likely going to be Monday or Tuesday next week, but it has been recorded. And then, of course, you are always welcome to reach out to the admissions office if you have questions regarding anything related to next steps. And then also our student financial service office related to anything FAFSA and scholarships are always happy to help. And we can get you to the correct office if it's not something that we're able to help with. But we will have this shared for everybody. All right. Any other last minute questions? Will an email be sent with a link to access it? So we don't typically send out an email. We upload it to our YouTube page. So you can look for S&T admissions on YouTube, and we'll have that video posted. But you can also email our admissions at mst.edu page to get it emailed directly to you. But again, should be on our YouTube page in the next couple of days. Is housing costs known?
So I believe Residential Life probably has provided the cost. Oh. When is the housing cost known?
Okay. I wasn't sure. No, you're good. I was like enemy. I wasn't sure, but yes. When is the housing cost known?
And so Kelly, do you know if it's been updated on their website yet?
I think it should have been updated. So I think what is up there is the most current. They usually, I believe it should be, because we printed our letters. So if you come for advising and registration day, you do get a little family guidebook, and it does have those costs. And we printed those a while ago. So what's on their website should be updated. And I can put that website for you.
Yes, thank you. Great. And then whatever the housing selections are, if you're in the residence halls, that will be fed over to the billing system sometime in probably late June in preparation for the July 15th bill. So it will be a part of your first bill that you get on July 15th. Depending on what you chose.
Yes. And like Bridget mentioned, there's multiple, if you decide to live in one of the fraternity sorority houses, campus Christian houses. Those are good options if you're looking for that type of community that can save you some money. Most of them are cheaper. Now, I was part of Greek Life. If you buy all the t-shirts, that does add up and kind of doesn't save you as much. So maybe do a t-shirt budget. But it is a good option if that is something that you're interested in. Oh, Joe's, how do I register set up for this account? So there is actually on the next steps page for the students, and I can again share that link here in a second. There is a step-by-step guide on how students can set up their account. They will need to give you authorization, and I'll let Bridget talk about that process on how that they can give you authorization to view their account and pay their bills and all of those things. But I'll share the next steps page with those directions.
Yeah. So then once students have access to Joe's, they will be able to go into, I think it's the personal information tile, and they can then give anybody access to see certain things. They can give two different types of access. One is called AAA, Additional Authorized Access, which basically allows them to set up a username and password for you to log into a separate guest portal. the student will then choose what parents get to see. So they can see their financial aid, they can see grades, they can see their housing, and they can get access to the billing information. The students can give all, one, or any combination of that. The other access is FERPA, and that allows you to call anybody on campus and ask certain questions about the student's account, but you have to be calling from the number that gets set up there. I will mention if you're coming to advising and registration, you will be pre-registered in a certain block of classes about a week or so before your A&R day. And so that means the information is then protected by FERPA, or the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And that means we can't talk to any students about the student, or I'm sorry, anybody on behalf of the student without the student present, unless the student has given the parents and the loved ones permission. So this is a good opportunity. Once you get access to Joe's, the student should get in there and go ahead and give parents and loved ones access if they want to do that.
That is a very important step. And for those of you that have not completed, if you've signed up for your advising and registration and haven't submitted your pre-advising survey, I would highly recommend doing that. So that way your advisor can get a jump start on your schedule, and then you can have a more targeted conversation during that A&R day. So that way you have the best schedule possible. It can actually connect a little bit more with your advisor and personalize. But highly recommend, if you are having a parent or family, like Bridget says, pay your bill and see those things. That's really important. My brother was a current recent S&T graduate, and my mom needed that information. And so was much easier when she had that access. All right, we have about 5 minutes left. So does anyone have any last minute questions? And if you think of anything later, or it's more individual questions that we could not answer, please, again, feel free to reach out to help us or reach out. And we're happy to help. We are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and we are always happy to help. Good question. How do you upload your shots records? So your vaccination records, which is going to be required if you are living in the residential halls, you do have to submit certain vaccination records. You are going to have a health portal. So if you view that Next Steps page, it should talk about that on that page. And it is going to give you a link to log in with your Joe's account to your student health portal and be able to upload those documents and have your doctor send any documents as well. And that is also this very similar for if you need any accessibilities or accommodations, that we do have a portal where you can upload third-party documentation, and you'll meet with an access advisor that can help you make sure that we've set up the proper accommodations to make sure that you're successful. But it should also, again, be on your Next Steps page, and it will link to there. And if you did not see it, I will put it in the chat again so everybody can have access to that. And please know you're welcome to reach out to your admissions counselor, reach out to our office. We are happy to help. I really recommend reaching out to admissions and student financial aid, student financial services first. We are the ones that are going to have the most current and accurate information. So if you can reach out to our office, we're happy to guide you through next steps, what you need to do, tips and tricks to make sure that you are successful and that your students are knocking everything out. But if you have not gone into your student's portal, your student hasn't shown you, they do have an application portal that has a lot of checklist items that you really want to make sure that they are checking off. The biggest ones that students really forget to do, and we'll start sending emails end of May. You don't have to send them right at May. Don't panic, especially we have out-of-state students that don't finish school until June, but we start getting those reminders because students forget to send us those official final high school transcripts, those official test scores, as well as if you're a transfer student, all of your official college transcripts, or if you had college credit through dual enrollment or anything like that. All of those have to come and be sent to us officially from the university or from the college or the testing agency. Otherwise, it can be a little bit of a issue when it comes to registering next semester or for Bridget's office on releasing financial aid. So very important as the summer comes that you remember to send us all of those official documents. And by official, again, it does need to come from the schools and through that testing agency. And one little thing that sometimes tricks a student up is the high school transcripts. They have to have a graduation date on it to be considered final. If you send us your senior year transcript, but there's no graduation date, even if it was sent from your school, it doesn't count as final. Most schools do know this, that it needs to have that graduation date on that. So make sure that you're working with your counselor to send that our way. But I think that is all most of the questions. I have a couple more that I'll go through really quickly. Is there a deadline to take the ALEKS math placement test? We do recommend at least 14 days. I say 14 days. You can do 7 days prior to your A&R day. So you're advising and registration, and that's where you're registering for your classes. But if you don't get it done there, you can still take it after. You'll just need to reach out to your advisor and you will have to adjust your schedule. But if there is no ALEKS math placement test on file, they are going to place you in the lowest math that they have proof showing where you're at with your math proficiency. So it is best to take that, but you do want to make sure you take it seriously. It is proctored, so you will have to have a webcam. You do have 3 attempts, but that is what your advisor is going to use to determine where they recommend you starting off at math. And I encourage students to listen to those advisors. It's not a race. I know everybody obviously wants to graduate as soon as possible, save as much money, but we also want to make sure we have engineers that can build safe bridges, doctors and teachers that know what they're doing. So we want to make sure you have a solid foundation. So that ALEKS math placement test is a really good tool to help see where you may need some additional support before we start building on top of that foundation. But again, that is at least 14 days prior to your A&R, if possible. But if not, you can take it after. And really, you do want to have it done before the start of classes, because if you haven't, if you have to change your schedule, there may be a little bit more limitations if you're waiting right till then. And I think that is the last of the questions. We are right at 7 o'clock. So if you did not get your question answered, I know I saw just a couple just come through really quickly. Please feel free to reach out to us. Again, we have our information right there. We are all happy to help. And it's the Office of Admissions and Student Financial Services. If you call one of us, I promise we'll get you to the other. So feel free to reach out to any of us and we're happy to help. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. If hopefully you're having as nice of weather as we are here in Rolla, Missouri. It's been a beautiful day. So hopefully you can enjoy a nice evening. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.